Hell yeah, let's get Stinko.
If you want it, don't just think you want it. Go out and fucking want it.
Arizona waits for the puck. Holla's going to get there. He's in. He scores! Eric Holla has tied the game for Minnesota. There's Parisi. Back up top. Parisi fires, scores! An opening night hat trick for Zach Parisi. Poked away by Palmerville. Palmerville and Niederreiter, 2-on-1. Niederreiter scores! Oposo's in alone. Oposo saved by Dubnyk.
Let's go crazy. Let's get nuts. Look for the purple banana till they put us in trouble.
Welcome, Giles and the Goalies podcast, episode 90. We're getting there. Yeah. I don't even know a hockey player has worn 90 before. I try to associate an episode with a player. Do you have a 90?
A 90?
Unless you want to count Mike Modano in Detroit.
No, God, no. No, I don't know.
No, I
can't think of a 90 off the top of my head.
Yeah,
a lot of 91s.
I don't think, we'll have a field day with 91.
Oh, hell yeah.
But no, I don't really think of any 90s. Somebody tweet us. If you have a good 90, let us know.
I feel like there's a goalie that wears 90. Or has worn 90. I don't know.
Vasilevsky wears 88.
He wore 88, yeah, but I feel like there's a weird, an off-kilter goalie that wore 90.
Anyway, introductions. Since I fumble with those every week. I am Giles Farrell. Across the table from me is Ben Remington.
Hello.
Once again with the soccer scarves right over his shoulder. I know he's thrilled about that.
I feel so comfortable and at home next to all these soccer scarves.
We're back here at the Midway Studios. For this week, we might have a guest for next week, and then we might return to our usual setup the following week. But we'll kind of play that one by ear.
We're gonna hop around. We're gonna keep people on their toes. They don't know where we're gonna be at.
I don't know. We
gotta avoid all these groupies.
Yeah. Anywho, since I remembered the intros, I'll pat myself on the back and have a sip of this lovely beverage.
That is a clear beverage.
Yeah, and in this house, I don't know, I'm trying not to drink a whole lot of beer right now, so I'm just sticking with the old liquor cabinet,
the spirits.
So yeah, and I keep adding to it. Lovely Minnesota craft collection.
Nice.
As kind of recall from several podcasts ago, my New Year's resolution was to help out more Minnesota businesses, and probably the biggest thing I can do in that department is support the local craft liquor establishments. There's a good number of them in there. So
great.
I'm enjoying one right now, but since none of them sponsor it, I won't share which one.
Okay.
So.
Well, we got to hit them up.
Yeah, so
we're getting more listens.
If somebody wants to ask me on Twitter, I'll be sure to at them.
Okay.
In that, because most of these places have Twitter accounts.
Yeah,
so
you would hope.
Anyway, I don't know. I'd say not most eventful week for the Wild.
Yeah.
They had their slate of 3 games, but they won. Oh no, they did not win all 3.
No,
I blanked out the Anaheim game. But, so yeah, they just kind of a quick rundown. We're going to try and quicken our pace of running through the last week's game, since most people have seen these, so we don't need to overly hash out these games. But so on Valentine's Day, the Ducks came into town, and I mean, the Wild so clearly dominated this game in just about most facets, except for the fact that John Gibson was the better goalie on the ice, and he was as good as a brick wall because nothing was getting by.
And credit to Devin Dubnyk. He wasn't better by much.
He made good
Dubnyk
saves
had a great
to keep him
night.
in the game.
I mean, it's a 1-zip game, and as much as the NHL hates 1-0 games, I thought it was a pretty fine hockey game.
Especially this year when goal scoring is up, we found a 1-0 game.
What? They didn't reduce the pads? I mean, just the pants, but
Pants.
or the chest protectors. They did
Don't
too.
you hate pants?
Yeah, that's right.
Don't you hate pants?
Oh my God! I don't
Wrong
care.
button. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, Gibson. I mean, you're going to come across games like that. You just got to tip your cap to the guy. Like, holy crap, was he out of his mind? And certainly not like an elite goaltender or anything by any stretch, but a young kid coming into his own and having some good games and stringing some together, hopefully, and hopefully he's kind of revving up to be an elite goalie because he's American, and we need that.
I'd like to think after the game, Bruce Boudreau just went into his office and mixing in a few profanities with this statement, but he just kind of had to sit there and go, man, one of them would have sure been nice in the postseason during my run in Anaheim.
No kidding. Well, he's the one that kept starting Frederick Anderson. Well, no, he did start Gibson a couple of times too.
I felt like they were just kind of back and forth.
Yeah.
I don't really follow the Ducks.
True.
So that might shock our listeners, but I don't follow the Ducks anymore. They're no longer mighty, so my affiliation with them ended.
Gotcha.
Anyway, then Thursday, Wild came back and they hosted Dallas, and they won 3-1. And and I just remember how bad the Stars are. It's just more or less what I took out of that game, and they shouldn't be that bad. And Jamie Benn, clearly frustrated, took some dumb penalties in that, and I don't know. That was my big takeaway from the Dallas game. Was how bad the Stars are. I think
their goaltending is still a tire fire. So. That's what the Stars are. I mean, they last season when they were good, you and I said a zillion times before the season, we were like, okay, that's nice. You signed Antti Niemi. What are you going to do about your goaltending? Like you signed a good backup. Okay, you still have Kari Lehtinen. And then they were good, and they were good because of their goaltending. And then weird, the other shoe drops, and they're not good this year. And shouldn't surprise anybody. Obviously, I don't think it surprises many people outside of the state of Texas, but that's what happens. I mean, you have two goaltenders that are both very mediocre, combined soaking up a $10 million cap hit to boot, and that's what you're rolling with. Like, I know Lindy Ruff's job is in jeopardy, but I mean, I don't know how Jim Nill. I mean, maybe he's more on the hot seat in that area, but. I mean, that goaltending situation, like, how does he get away with that? And that's just atrocious. Like, that was your game plan to make Kari Lehtinen better, was to sign an equally mediocre Finnish goalie for almost as much money?
When this is what I remember when they signed Niemi. I remember Jim Nill's exact line. It just has always stuck with me, which is weird because I could barely remember any lines from anyone. But I remember him saying that he signed Niemi because he believed the NHL was moving towards being a two-goalie league, where every team needed to have two goalies. And I just remember thinking, he's crazy, but I mean, everybody was really big on Jim Nill at the time, so it was kind of maybe he's got a point, but really in the 2 years since, it's just been proven that, you were full of what.
Well, that was the summer he made the Sharp trade.
Right.
And so everyone's like, oh my God, he's a genius. Oh, he's a genius. He got Patrick Sharp for a song.
GM of the offseason every year, Jim Nill.
And it's like, well, yeah, of course he got Patrick Sharp for a song because the freaking Blackhawks couldn't afford him anymore. So, I don't know. To wrap it up, that game, it was kind of a run-of-the-mill game for this team. I mean, it was a game they should have won. It's a game they did win. And they took advantage of Dallas's porous goaltending.
You know who had a really good game on Thursday?
Who's that?
Eric Holla. Can I tell you why Eric Holla had a good game?
Why is that, Giles?
Because earlier in the morning, an article went up on coldomaha.com written by some hack that basically said Eric Holla needs to get his act together because his future in the Wild could be numbered if he doesn't.
Which, it is hilarious how that whole thing works out.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine how your roommate reacted to that. But, I still, and obviously I'm sure you do, but stand by that article, because, he'll have a good game like that. But you wrote that article because he has a lot of games where you don't notice him. And so, that's kind of what we're getting out of Hall this year is he'll have a good game and then he'll go back to being kind of invisible a little bit. And it's hard not to do that in the fourth line. But still, you're expecting... There's a reason why he's on the fourth line and not still on the third line.
He'll have 4 games where he is on fire, great. You're just man, he is really good.
Right.
And then he disappears for the next 10.
Yeah.
And then he ends up getting, bumped to the fourth line because they have to move Coyle back to center because they're just not getting anything from their bottom 6 or the fourth line.
And it's easy to blame Grayovac for not producing either.
Right.
But, if plain and simple, if Hall was producing the way that he, they expect him, he wouldn't have been pushed down to the fourth line. That's just all there is to it. Right. Is it a luxury having him in the fourth line? Yeah, I think it is. But is he on the fourth line because he wasn't producing on the third line? Yeah, he is.
Wow.
What is this?
As we're recording, we're watching Detroit and Pittsburgh, and the golden child himself, Tom Vanek, just put an absolute laser into the top shelf.
That was
Ben's going to watch us in real time now.
Wow. And he just can't skate at all. Oh my God! Yeah, he skates in the slot between the dots and just
somebody sends condolence flowers to Matt Murray.
Oh my God! Yeah, he had no chance on that.
If you're watching this, look up this goal. Tom Vanek, Detroit's 4th goal against Pittsburgh on Sunday, February 19th.
What I don't understand is how the defenders didn't step up on him at all. He basically splits 2 defenders like Luis Mendoza. And just
Miami, Florida,
and just fires an absolute laser to the top corner of the net. Poor Matt Murray. And then the Pittsburgh Penguins
fire wagon hockey.
Yeah. Anyway, so enough play-by-play of the game that happened a day ago.
Anyway,
for listeners. But yeah, no, I think we're wrapping up Holla here. So. Yeah, it just that is what it is. He's just kind of inconsistent and. You would have kind of hoped that he would find a combination that worked, and maybe part of the problem is them trying to get Eric Stahl going and therefore flopping around wings on those 2 guys a lot. But Holla is very sporadic. I think he's having a decent year, but not the year that you would expect given the talent that's been around him a lot. I mean, he's played a lot with Nino, he's played a lot with Pominville, which sounds bad, but Pominville has been producing a lot, so he's even got to play some with Parisi. Right. And it just it seems like he's not getting results, right. and so as hilarious as it is that you write an article and that night he goes out and gets 2 points, I think that kind of maybe even furthers your point.
So, and this is also just I don't know, take this for what it is, but also Darcy Kemper was in net, and that was his first start since I wrote an article on him last week, and he was great. It's weird how these things happen. When I write about something or somebody, the opposite seems to happen.
Well, I think we had a pretty good run of the Giles curse on Wild Extra. I seem to remember that. I think you brought it back. Yeah,
it carried over.
You definitely brought it back.
Since I've been writing again, the curse is still there. So basically, from here on out, I'm just going to write everything's terrible.
Yeah, well,
You'll all thank me in June.
Every time a player is doing poorly, Giles just needs to call it out.
I should write Eric Stahl.
I was going to say, please write about Stahl this week.
Anyway.
But yeah, then Saturday they play the Perds, and kind of a chippy game. I didn't catch the entirety of it. I'm terribly sorry, but
I got most of it.
Yeah, but it seemed like, a game where They just kind of let the Preds beat themselves. Pekka Rinne is not elite. I don't care what anybody says, but
this is kind of how the game went for me. Like the first period, first 10 minutes, in which the Wild scored 2:38 into the game.
Yeah.
I thought the Preds looked awful, as every team has coming out of the bye week. And I thought, you can put your foot on the gas right now, and this can be 3-0 in no time.
Yeah.
And they didn't. I thought they got too cute with the puck in certain spots during that time. They tried to make that extra pass as we were accustomed to seeing previous.
No way.
And then they weren't able to score. The Preds kind of got their legs back, and then they were able to stay in the game. The Wild did score the next goal to go up 2-0, but then the Preds hung around. It was 3-2, and I don't know. The Wild never actually put them away until they were putting empty net goals in.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a frustrating game, and Devin Dubnyk had to make some pretty good saves to keep the Wild in the lead. But a win is a win, but not a pretty one. And as you said, kind of a chippy one, with Chris Stewart kind of leading the charge in that department. And then at the end, just everybody seemed to be brawling with each other.
Well, you're going to get that with these divisional games, and tempers flare, and then obviously Nashville's not in a great spot, and I'm sure they're not very thrilled about it. So they're literally trying to fight their way out. So
my roommate tweeted me about Vanek. Sorry to interject here, but he said,
that might be a penalty shot.
Can Vanek score from the bench since he can't skate? ? But anyway,
I've taken my hoodie off, so this does not apply to that.
Something, I don't know. I'm quickly thinking on the fly here. Zucker scored from Granlund last night on a nice play, and then Koivu scored in the third, and Zucker also had an assist.
So one of the few goals I did see was that Koivu goal. What the hell was Nashville doing? I watch it because I was watching on my phone, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh. Everyone's like, what? I'm like,
which was
Koivu's
600th NHL point.
Yeah, kudos to him.
Okay, this ties him with John Taves among active or all time or something. It basically has the same number of points as Taves. So my question is, how come Koivu didn't get on the NHL 100 list? No, I'm just kidding. That was violently hot take. I don't really know what Nashville was doing on that play. But
it was weird.
Bad and whatever. So I saw since the Zucker-Koivu-Granlund line got assembled on Black Friday, they have combined for 110 points.
Jesus.
And I'm fairly well versed in Wild history, as I've been around for their entire existence. Is this the best line we've ever seen in Wild history? And you can make a pretty good case for. If they stay through the end of the year, they stay together through the end of the year, I'd say it is.
I would tend to agree. It'll be close because I don't remember who it was that was with Dimitra and Gaborik.
Whoever it was,
they didn't really.
Whoever it was,
do a ton, but
that was a good. I was going to say Dimitra and Gaborik and whoever the hell that was.
Because I don't know. I don't remember. I mean, I remember those two as a pair.
Aaron Voros. There you go.
I remember those two as a pair, but I think that wing rotated quite a bit. Because it didn't matter who the wing was. Yeah, quite frankly,
you were just taking a back seat. Your plus minus was the beneficiary of that.
But I feel like that line, was probably put up a lot of points for a couple of seasons there. But I mean, it's really hard to argue against this line, and obviously the results speak for themselves. And also, the thing about this line too is how good they are defensively. This isn't just like a Alexander Ovechkin line that just is outscoring everyone and not playing a whole lot of defense, a la Bruce's run in Washington. Right. This line is playing, shutdown defense. You hate to cite plus minus, but this line is just not getting scored on, almost never. And that's as much as people hate plus minus, I think that's something to kind of hang your head on a little bit, where you're just not allowing any goals. I mean, you know, it's as a line. I think that's somewhat worth measuring. But yeah, I you know, especially if they stay together through the end of the season, and they keep producing anywhere close to this clip, that's a pretty strong argument for the best line in Wild history.
So, my friend Graham loves to bring this up about Keith Carney's plus minus season record from 2006-07.
Oh God!
Because it was just an obscure record held by a player who played 2 seasons here.
Keith Carney.
But
good God.
if the season ended today, like just for the sake of we can debate plus minus being valid till we're blue in the face, but or actually I think we tend to agree on it. But anyway, if the season ended today, Keith Carney would now have the 7th highest plus minus.
Yeah.
In one season in Wild history, and he started the year as the best in that regard.
Right.
So 6 players on this team
would be
currently have a better plus minus in 58 games?
Yeah.
Than Keith Carney did in 82 games, and I'm guessing it's not going to go down. And Zucker, Koivu, and Granlund all part of that.
Right.
But Ryan Suter, the leader, with 35. But anyway, that just throwing that out there.
No, it's weird because plus minus has been just absolutely fricasseed by a lot of people, and I totally understand it because we kind of do that too. But hockey people and even smart hockey people, analytics folks aside, still take a lot of value in it. And I don't know, like I said, there's something to it as like a rough estimate, if you will. Like there's a lot of factors that go into plus minus. The save percentage of the goalie behind you, the shooting percentage of you and your teammates. So it's really kind of a crap measurement, when you're looking at is this good? Is this a good defensive hockey player? But to your point, there is something to be said for it. Like there is, the fact that this team is really, really good, and the plus minus numbers show that they're really, really good, indicates that there's something to plus minus, not enough for it to be cited on every period of every FSN broadcast, Anthony LaPanta, but there is something to it, and not that it's his fault, but you know what I mean? Like, they cite it way more than it should be cited. But there, it's a statistic, and there's a lot that goes into that. It's as flawed as any other statistic, I suppose.
Right.
Especially in hockey.
So that I guess that can kind of wrap up the week.
Yeah.
We limited to 20 minutes.
Sure. That's not bad.
Cut in half from last week.
Yeah, last week we just kind of droned on and on about games that people already watched.
Windbags.
We're taking your reviews seriously, people.
Right. That's a good promo. Thank you to everyone who filled out our survey as we try to continue to get better. And if you haven't filled out the survey, check out our podcast Twitter account, and you can find that link at GATG Wild Podcast. You must have a Google account to take the survey, but most rational human beings do have a Google account, so you should be okay.
It is weird, and I know some people might be a little apprehensive, but we cannot see who is leaving the reviews. So.
Right, we can't see that, and there's been some constructive feedback.
Yeah,
so
which we really appreciate.
Don't hold back. I'm not gonna call anyone out. I mean, the only time I raised an eyebrow was when somebody said Tom Schreier should be on more. I'm not entirely convinced that wasn't Tom himself.
I was going to say, we threw that one right out the window because we knew where it came from.
Yeah, but anyway. So, something, just kind of a thought I had overall this week from these games, and Michael Russo had a nice article, and I believe it was Friday, about Gustav Olofsson and how he's been since he's been recalled, and how originally when Jonas Brodin went down with an injury, that it was between him and Mike Riley to get the first call up, and when Chuck Fletcher drove down to Des Moines, Riley had far and away the better game and Riley got the look, and Olofsson took that game. He watched film with Iowa's head coach Derek Lalonde, and he basically, Olofsson pointed out all of his errors from that game. It wasn't the coach, and in sense he was great, and then he ended up getting a call up after Riley kind of, not going to say he played poorly, but he didn't play great. So they wanted to give Olofsson a look, and really since he's been great. I mean, I don't know, great is the word, but good.
Yeah, he's been good.
I mean, when he first got called up, he had a few rough moments, but it just feels like with each passing game, he gets better, he gets more polished. He does good in his own end. He's so calm and collected. Basically, another Jonas Brodin, but I mean, he can hold his own, and he's gotten power play time, and this week I've been thoroughly impressed with him just because, he's been kind of put some more high pressure spots and he's done pretty well. Yeah,
he's had some nasty moments every now and then, and they're magnified and I'm not completely crapping on Nate Prosser because I think Nate Prosser is what he is, but he's also been paired with Nate Prosser, which,
So he really has to pick the slack up.
Nate Prosser has played all right, but Nate Prosser, it's not like being paired with Ryan Suter. It's not like being paired with Jaron Spurgeon. It's not like being paired with Jonas Brodin. It's Nate Prosser, and he can only do so much. He's fine for what he is. I'm not crapping on Nate Prosser, but so that all that being said, I think Olofsson has looked pretty good, all things considered. It just speaks to the incredible depth that the Wild have on defense, and kind of tying into the Vegas expansion talk that we had last week. It makes you fear them losing a defender a little less. Like if Jonas Brodin is the player they end up losing to Las Vegas, which a lot of people are kind of citing that. It certainly helps a lot to have a guy like Olofsson that kind of steps in and you don't really notice Brodin gone quite as much as you might otherwise, because Olofsson is kind of like a lighter version of Brodin in that sense. So it speaks to it, and then it speaks to the fact they still have Mike Riley sitting in Iowa, and his game is a lot more flash and flare and a lot more mistake prone, but it's a good mix. I think it's a good mix with him and Olofsson. I think it's a good mix with, you see that kind of pairing with Dumba and Brodin right now. Once they're both back healthy, that is.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's a good thing. It's a good thing all around. I mean, they're showing off their depth. We knew that Olofsson was a kid who could play. He's kind of been very on the verge of making the team for the last 2 years.
I think kind of in his defense, he's had various injuries the last 2 years that have kind of prevented him from, maybe being that sixth defenseman to open the season already or what have you. But it just, it just kind of some unfortunate circumstances that have kind of held him back, and now he's having a healthy year, and we're finally seeing what he can actually do.
Yeah. Good point.
All right. Did you have any other thoughts from this week, or should we just kind of venture into the Q&A here?
Yeah, we can venture into the Q&A. I think this is a run-of-the-mill week, 2-1. You can't feel too upset about the loss, and the 2 wins were good. So,
and as we record, the Wild are out front of the Central Division. No extra games. They're even in games played with Chicago, but that's because Chicago, I believe, had a bye this week, and then the Wild are moving into their bye week this upcoming week,
right
after they play on Tuesday, which is the only game of the week.
Yeah.
And then Chicago will have had 3 games in hand once the Wild play again.
Yeah.
Or the Wild will have 3 games in hand once they play again coming out of the bye.
Yep.
But no, as we record, Minnesota 9 points clear of Chicago.
Oh, Jesus.
And they are now 17 points clear of home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs.
Wow.
And they are 1 point behind Washington for the most in the NHL.
Wow.
So I'm not going to get too excited about winning the President's Trophy. In fact, I'd almost prefer we didn't.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right. We did a Q&A, and we kind of left it open since last week everybody was kind of violently angry that we didn't have we
didn't take food questions.
We left out food questions. We limited it to wild only questions.
Sure.
So we're opening the floor again to your food questions. But first question from at Daniel Mick. Never heard of him.
No.
How do I deal with the very real possibility that the Wild are actually good, like emotionally? I don't know, man. That was word for word.
Yeah, I love this question. It's Dan being, a little bit sarcastic, a little bit tongue in cheek, but I think it's a very real.
Right. It's a question we have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like that. It kind of speaks to the Minnesota sports fan psyche a little bit, where.
Dan and I are also having a similar discussion here. We have been having a similar discussion here this weekend about Gopher hockey.
Oh, sure.
That's kind of why my attention kind of ventured away from the Wild game Saturday night, was because the Gophers had such an epic comeback. You couldn't look away.
Sure.
As you can see, my 2 TV setup here was in full force.
But it's. I might write on this week, but. It's hard not to jump on, a bit, and do I absolutely expect this team to win the Stanley Cup? I don't think that you need to go that far, and I don't think you need to go that far to be a fan of this team and not enjoy the ride.
Right.
This team is obviously having a phenomenal year, and you certainly expect at least a good postseason run, and that remains to be seen, but. It's been a phenomenal ride, and they still got a ways to go, and they're playing extremely good hockey, and there's no reason, there really is not a single reason to anticipate that going away.
Right. And I have a couple thoughts on this. One, everybody seemingly kind of points at Bruce Boudreau's regular season record and puts that together with his playoff record. And
sure.
My defense into that is he's going into the playoffs knowing that Devan Dubnyk is his goaltender. And usually in his history, Anaheim or Washington, he hasn't really had that certainty. Like Washington early on, he had a young Semyon Varlamov, and then he got moved, and then he had to deal with a young Braden Holtby while he was splitting time with, I can't even remember who.
The Michael Neuwirth.
Yeah. I mean, there was no certainty there, and then, Holtby didn't really take off till after Boudreau left Washington.
Very much so.
And then he went to Anaheim, where, as you kind of mentioned earlier, they had the Frederik Anderson, John Gibson split.
Well, when he got there, he had Jonas Hiller.
Yeah, right. And there was Jonas Hiller, and then I believe Frederik Anderson was the backup at the time.
Yep, and then
he really never had a solid number one, which, backfired on him ultimately in the playoffs and his Game 7s. And so, first point is, Devan Dubnyk is his goaltender, and he's playing, as good as anyone, if not the best in the league right now. And that is a definite one-up in that regards.
Yeah.
And then my other point is just kind of a cautionary one, where, I mentioned, or I wrote a few weeks ago, the Western Conference is wide open, which definitely favors the Wild, but as we inch closer to the trade deadline, I just have this feeling that a Western Conference team, maybe not the Blackhawks, since they're just so pressed to the cap,
right,
is going to make a huge splash, and then they're just going to take off. Like, whether that's, and I just kind of feel like it's going to come from somebody out from the Pacific.
Yeah.
Like, whether that's San Jose or, Calgary or LA, I don't think Edmonton's really going to do anything of relevance, because they kind of want to see what they have, but they're going to be in the playoffs. But this feels like somebody's going to make a big splash in the West, and then they're just going to catch fire. Or maybe even St. Louis, who's hot right now under Mike Yeo. Go figure.
Wait, what?
Mike Yeo surging after after a team was seemingly close to dead
in January.
But I don't know, and maybe that would be good for the Wild if the hot Blues and Blackhawks met in the first round of the playoffs and beat the ever living piss out of each other.
That'd be great.
But, those are kind of my 2 points. Is one kind of in either column, but Dan has he's got a good point here. Like, you can't help but have the shields up, more or less. It just because you're a Minnesota sports fan and all you're used to is pain. And I don't know. I like this team, but again, it's going to have to be I'm going to kind of have my guard up until we get really far in the playoffs.
Until the cup is raised.
Right.
I think that's fair. And I'll, like I said, I might write on it this week, but I don't know. There's a lot of variables to that, but I don't know. It's the same as when they were bad, like when they would swoon and just enjoy the ride. Right. It's. I'm as invested in this team as somebody can be, not financially necessarily, but not like you. I'm invested in this team from a time standpoint as far as podcasting and writing and et cetera, et cetera. If they get bounced in the first round of the playoffs, I'm going to be disappointed, but that doesn't make being a fan of this team and being into this team right now not worth it to me,
right.
That's just kind of my thoughts on things in general. Being a sports fan in general, the team doesn't have to win a championship for you to be for your bandwagon fanhood to be worth it. This is
just from me, but the Wild are really becoming more popular, locally, just a few examples, just a few examples I've seen here, just in the last week. Like, I've had a couple friends who, they're big into sports, but maybe your bigger sports like
sure.
football or basketball, they've kind of taken notice and they kind of shoot me a text. Hey, Wild, they're doing really good. How do you feel? And I've been watching, and they're pretty good. And so I've had some chat. And like today, I was up at my mom's place, and somebody had a really cool it was a Minnesota Wild flag hanging from their garage, and it was kind of just envision the American flag. You got the stripes, and then you take the stars out, and you put a Wild logo, and it's just all green.
Sure,
that was kind of neat. Yeah. You're just starting to see people taking more interest in this team, and maybe that just kind of shows that the desperation this town has for a quality product.
Yeah, no kidding.
We seemingly can't find that consistently. We've had the Twins and the Wolves have been crap for almost at least a decade, at least in the Wolves regard, and the Twins are
knocking on a decade.
Yeah, they're knocking on the door of that, and the Vikings are seemingly hit or miss every year, but when they're
mostly miss.
When they're good, they still crush your soul. So
I heard they were 5-0.
And the Wild have kind of toyed with us, and Gopher Sports is just always seemingly a hot mess, and Gopher Hockey finally back to being really seemingly good this year, and we can kind of
still in the Big Ten.
Yeah. I'd love to get our friend Nate Wells on to kind of talk about that, because I I don't follow college hockey intensely, but just to me the Big Ten seems to be a lot better this year. But
no, I think you're right about that.
But anyway, so I don't know. It's just kind of neat to see the Wild being so front and center in this town. Except for maybe this last week when I didn't care for all the Vikings articles that just spewed out of nowhere in the middle of February.
Yeah,
in regards to a running back who I could not give a crap about.
If you want to know why I hate the Minnesota Vikings, that's why.
Mm-hmm.
That's why. Because it's mid-February. You've got one of the best hockey teams in the NHL. You've got spring training starting for your baseball team. And you've got a basketball team that's not great, but exciting. And you've got an MLS team landing in a few weeks.
And you could probably not, unless you're really following soccer, probably most people couldn't tell you when the MLS team is starting.
And you've got Gopher hockey is good. Gopher basketball is kind of good.
They're competent, which
and
is what
still,
we've been waiting for. Yeah.
What are people talking about?
The Vikings.
Mother Vikings. Like, oh my God. It literally boils my blood. Like, take a month off.
Right. Just
That's all. You know, the Super Bowl is over. You've cried about the Patriots. We get it. Take a month off. If you want to talk draft, talk draft.
I mean,
talk draft in March and April. Draft. Fine.
I'm hashtag blessed in the Patriots regard because I don't remember the Super Bowl. So
I was cheering for the Patriots. I thought that was a hell of a game, but
well, I mean, you can make your own conclusions there, but I don't have a good memory of the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
so we'll just let that be.
All
right. On to the next question. Josh O wants to know if we're allowed to ask food questions. Yes, we're going to reopen the floor to those because apparently everybody wants to get in there.
So
food takes.
I typed out a reply to that from the podcast account, and I just wrote sigh and then space and then yes. But I deleted it. I figured I'd leave that up to you because it's kind of your bid.
But we got a couple here from our friend Brett Marshall.
Sure.
Former Wild Extra
comrade, now to be found at Gone Puck Wild.
Yep.
So
give
check
him
him
a
out.
follow on Twitter at bmarsh92 or B_marsh92. But his first question is NHL/NHLPA are in debate over whether or not the list of players that Vegas gets to pick from. So essentially the list of protected and unprotected players, whether or not these should be public. What are the pros and cons of each? Well, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty cut and dry on this. This is something you want the NHL to release.
Oh yeah, I do.
I don't understand why they feel the need to keep this a secret.
Well,
it just, and this kind of maybe falls under the cap geek comment that Gary Bettman made when he was asked about Cap Geek after the founder passed away, and Gary Bettman simply said, fans really don't want that information. Yes, Gary, we do. Let me break it to you. We like to know things. Well, I don't understand how you can cut yourself off from your fan. Like, you're just letting relevant info not get released. It just.
I think in this particular situation, it's actually not a Bettman thing. Russo was tweeting about it because Brett actually asked Russo about this on Saturday. So this is where his question is coming from. And I guess what Russo said is that the NHL wants to, and the NHLPA is the one that scoffed at it, which I totally understand, because I quote tweeted that and said, "What? I totally get it, because the NHL, what do they care? You know, they want to drum up interest in this expansion draft, to drum up interest in Vegas, so I think they're for it. But the NHLPA, I understand their stance too, because a lot of feelings going to get hurt.
They don't want to have hurt.
Yeah, there could be a lot of butthurt to go around when that list comes out. You know,
the players are going to know this.
Well, and so I don't know how public the teams themselves are going to make these lists, but I don't know, from a team standpoint, I don't know that I would want to make my list public either, because that very much tips your hand into how you value your players. So there's a lot of moving parts to this, and I would absolutely love for them to release the list. But I think the NHLPA is very against it, and I would not be surprised if the teams themselves would be against it, because it really is kind of showing their hand. And there's some delicate flowers out there that might get a little antsy in their pantsy that they were left unprotected, or a certain person was protected over them, or whatever, And
I guess maybe that could be something that's used as kind of a contract negotiation chip. But
hey, if they don't release the list and that means they're playing Olympic hockey, I'll take it.
I don't know. I get worried about the NHLPA sometimes. They're just.
Oh, they're an absolute S show.
They're just kind of
just like the NHL itself.
They're just going down a weird road. They're the ones that wanted this bye week that seemingly nobody can do right with. Every team comes out of this bye week and they play pure crap.
Yeah.
I think as of yesterday, teams coming out of the bye are 3-13 so far. That is terrible. As I said earlier when we were talking about Nashville, they they did not look good in the first 10 minutes of that hockey game. It took them, nearly an entire period to get going, because the thing is when you come out of these bye weeks, like, you don't get a practice. Like, you literally show up at 5 o'clock the day before the game.
Yeah.
And then so maybe a couple teams get to practice if they come out at home, but you come out of the bye, you got to jump on a plane and you got to fly somewhere for your next game.
Right.
And I don't know, that's for another day. We'll probably go really into this next week when the Wild come out of their bye, and they probably lose to
no kidding, right?
Who do they play next out of the bye? Oh, good, they play at home against the Kings right out of the bye, and then they go back to back at Winnipeg.
Oh, nice,
so, wonderful,
cool.
That's great. All right. The other question from Brett was he threw out a food question, and he just kind of tagged us in it later. But after opening the bottle, does maple syrup go in the fridge or the pantry?
So, this is an interesting question, and I've actually flipped on this, which I think is rare. But I thought about this, and I hate to be the bearer of no discussion, but I don't know that it's that big of a deal for me. I think a lot of people grew up with it in the fridge, and that's why you keep it in the fridge, because you're just used to that. Now, that being said, it does not have to be in the fridge. It does not spoil. It's basically just liquid sugar. And you can totally put it in your cupboard, and I do that now. I'm one of those pretentious foodies, and I have 100%, and I have 100% authentic maple syrup in my cupboard. But I actually just had French toast yesterday at my girlfriend's, and she had syrup in her fridge, and I gotta say, it didn't bother me at all. Like, I don't know that there's, I don't know. I feel like it's not as hotly contested as our soup debate.
That's funny, because I really wanted to make French toast yesterday, but I didn't have syrup, and I didn't want to steal from the roommate's syrup, so I just punted, and I'll get syrup when I go to the store this week and make it next week. But that was funny that if I had syrup, we would have had French toast on the same day.
So where do you stand on the topic?
I'm kind of in your camp. Like, it's not a big deal, but it just goes back in the pantry. I'm not gonna throw it in the fridge. Like, you go somewhere to get breakfast. Like, do you think they put that in the fridge? No, it's been out forever. So it's not a big deal to me, but.
I understand it, and I really doubt there's anybody who strongly argues for it being in the fridge, because they only do it because that's how they just grew up doing it, and not really knowing any better that you don't need to refrigerate it. But maybe there's an argument to be said where they want it thicker and they want it cold, and I can kind of see that, because like yesterday, like I said, I had the French toast, some hot toasty French toast, and then some thick cool syrup on it. I can get behind that. I can kind of party with that line of thinking. It really doesn't matter to me. So sorry, Brett, but I'm not as passionate about this topic as you are. And neither is Giles. This is weird. We're disappointing the crap out of everyone right now.
So far, his poll is slightly favoring pantry. So,
okay. Well, that's probably how it should be, but again, not that big of a deal.
All right, another one here from, who's that? At Where is Waldo?
Walbo. His name is Brent Walby. He's a private user, so I had to screenshot it and send it to the account.
Yeah, I would have never have seen it.
Yeah, no, hopefully it didn't pop up.
Hopefully we haven't missed any other of his questions.
No, well, not that he sent to me, at least.
But, he says, I can't foresee the Wild making a move by the trade deadline due to their success/depth. Agree or disagree?
Well, someone didn't read my article on Friday.
I was going to say.
Thanks, Brent. I tend to kind of agree. In my article, I talked about why they wouldn't make a big move. All of that being said, I do think they'd make a move. I think they acquire. We talked about this a couple of weeks in a row now. I think they acquire a bottom six guy, probably center. I would think maybe, or a guy that's versatile, even better. I think they acquire a bottom six guy. I don't think they acquire a defenseman, because I don't know that they need it. Once they get Brodin and Dumba back, I think like we've talked about, we've sung the praises of Olofsson. I think Christian Folin has kind of shown that he can belong at certain points. I think Nate Prosser is a decent 6th, 7th defenseman. So, but I think they do acquire a bottom 6 forward. I don't know, is that your kind of feeling on it too? Or
yeah, and I think here in the next week and a half or whatever, they're going to really look at Charlie Coyle at center and kind of say if he plays well, then they're probably going to stick with him there for the rest of the year. And if they're not overly sold, or if there's a good deal to be made on a center that's out there to kind of plug in the bottom 6, but I just don't think they're going to get a good deal on a bottom 6 center because those seem to be a real premium. So it wouldn't surprise me if they just went out and they got a winger and to put in the bottom 6, and instead of going for that center like a Hansel or Boyle type. But
I think you alluded to this with your how bad the Western Conference is. This would be a good time for them to push all their chips in. This team certainly hasn't been better, and it's tough to say that they're going to be better next year because they're going to lose a player to Vegas. They might lose more than that, depending on how the contract negotiations go with guys like Nino, Granlund, and Haula, amongst others. So this looks like a good time to kind of push the chips in, but the trade market doesn't look great this year. And so I don't know. It's really remains to be seen. We should start seeing some deals kind of come fast and furious now. We're under a week to go here, so or we're almost a week to go here, I should say. So I don't know. It just seems like this would be a good time to do it. I still don't think they are, but this would be a good time to do it. So I would love to see a good deal made. However, for the reasons I outlined in my article on Friday, the cap, the chemistry, and the cupboard. I don't see it happening. Like you said, bottom 6 guy, some forward depth, and that's probably about it.
Yeah. So Russo kind of was alluding to the fact that he'd be surprised if the Wild still had their first round pick by the time the draft came, and so whether that's using it at the deadline or in the expansion draft or those kind of backdoor moves. So I guess, and it is a weak draft, so maybe he would finally just say, okay, yeah, let's go get a Boyle or Hansel and throw the chips in,
right?
Because that's really what they need is just somebody to fill in the bottom 6. But we will see. We only have 10, 11 days until the trade deadline as we record. So. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
From Jeff Reuter, this is it's kind of one of them fun questions. It's shag, shoot, or marry, and then we have Blackhawks, Red Wings, and Senators.
Okay,
so we'll open the floor.
I think this to me came relatively easily. Shag, to use the clean word. I would go with the Senators because
we'll let the listeners look that up.
I would go with the Senators because they're kind of badass crazy, and that can be a lot of fun, as some of us have found out the easy way or the hard way or both. That organization as a whole is just kind of out there a little bit. They're just kind of a little out there.
Yeah, it's good for a day, but then once you're looking down the road, you just kind of you have some more that you're just like no.
Eric Carlson's nice, but I just don't like the long term outlook here. Mary is the Red Wings. It's kind of a class organization. Maybe they've seen better days, but you still kind of have to like their prospects going forward because they've kind of made the model for a long-term successful organization. And for every Wild fan, you're going to shoot the Blackhawks. Let's be honest. Like, as I was a Blackhawks fan as a kid for a couple of years there, and still, like, you're a Wild fan, you shoot the Blackhawks. There's just no. That's what he was looking for, I'm sure. So is that how it would line up for you, or would you do it differently?
Well, I mean, trying to think of which joke to file through here, but I mean, I'd probably agree, but I mean, there's some kind of shag joke in the Blackhawks and a certain 88.
Yeah, I wasn't going to go there, but I guess if you want to,
that's the craft liquor kicking in. But no, I would agree. Just the Sens, Jag Sens, marry Red Wings and shoot Blackhawks just
all day long.
I don't know.
Oh, speak of the devil, he's on your TV
he's
screen.
right on the TV now. I keep flipping the channel here as we record. Yeah, I was hoping the roommate would be back and he could.
Sing a song.
We could have a musical.
That's all right.
But no, we didn't get that lucky. So then, I think we got the last question here from at Minnesota or Mini Hockey on Twitter, Minnesota Hockey.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on Tuch and his future with the Wild?
Well, this is assuming he's not getting traded in the next 10 days.
Right.
I don't know that he's even a prime candidate to be traded. I think this organization likes him a lot. They certainly give him a handful of looks so far, and obviously his college career went pretty well after being a first-round pick, which is important as well. So, yeah, I mean, I like his long-term outlook. I don't know that he's going to be a guy like, is he going to be, a 30-goal scorer for this team, a 40-goal scorer? No, I don't think he is. I could see him being, I'm not going to compare him directly to Charlie Coyle because I think his game is a little bit differently. I think his game's a little more power and a little less finesse, even though they're both big Boston kids. But I don't know. I could see, like a decent Mark Parrish type light. That net front guy, that guy that just has a lot of skill in front of the net and knows how to use the size that he has, and is a good let's say second line type winger or first or a top 9 type winger, depending on what line you want him on. Who can get you 20-25 goals a season, but just doing the dirty work in front of the net like that. I don't think he's going to dangle his way around a whole lot of defenders. I don't think he has an elite shot. He's got a good enough shot, but I don't know. That's just kind of how I see Alex Tuch's career, whether it's here or, as I mentioned, whether it's elsewhere.
I think everyone's just, I don't know, I think there's a little bit of overreaction to Tuch and how he's played here in his first 5 or 6 games of his NHL career, and he hasn't looked good. It just soft on the puck, and he doesn't seemingly, move all that quick. Or
right.
I think he got sent down this afternoon, so he'll obviously work on some of his game in Iowa, and it's certainly been productive for guys to go back down and kind of polish up some things. And
the last time he got sent down, he blew up Iowa, so that kind of speaks to it.
But I think down the road, finally once he's able to stay up here consistently, he'll get it figured out, and as kind of you said, he'll probably be a second line kind of guy, but I don't expect him to be a first line winger by any stretch. But
and that's why if he's included in on a deal at the deadline, I'm not heartbroken about it, because I don't want to say players like him are a dime a dozen, because they're not. I mean, it's tough to find big guys who work well in front of the net like him, but at the same time, I don't know that he's a game changer at all. So I'm really not distraught if the Wild say, hey, you know what? We're really good. We got this first round pick in a weak draft. We got a kid who's NHL ready, could slide right into a young team's lineup like Alex Tuch. We're going to package them together, and we're going to get somebody who can really put us over the top for the stretch run. Again, I don't know that happens because of the salary cap mostly, but I really wouldn't be terribly upset about it. And it's still like his career long term. I mean, I still think he's going to be the same guy if he's here or goes elsewhere. So,
well, that'll do it for our Q&A. Thank you to everyone who put in their questions. Next show, we don't have a guest on. Check out our podcast Twitter account at GATG Wild Podcast, and usually early on in the day before we record, we'll fire out a question so you can get in your hockey-related questions or your food questions.
Just follow it anyway, because it's a good place to get links to our podcast, and maybe occasionally you'll see something fun out of us.
Right. We get some jersey articles sent to us.
Yeah.
But hey, speaking of jerseys.
Oh, yeah, good call.
Here to start the third period. What team is this? It's not Team USA. Well, yes, it is. They've got on new uniforms. They're wearing the logo of the Duck. I've never seen this before.
Dynamite. I got the intros down, and I'm making transitions like no other. Look at us go.
All we needed was a couple of reviews, a couple of surveys, and we're
just a couple of
crushing it now.
Yeah, just a couple of little feedback, and just get me going. But no, so the Wild only have one game this week, and they play the Blackhawks. So figuratively, the jersey of the week is the Blackhawks. And for those who are new to the show, this is the part where we look at one of the 30 teams every week, and we kind of look at what their jerseys might look like in the Adidas takeover next year.
Right.
Because we are jersey snobs here. There's a closet full of jerseys just 20 feet away from me. So anyway, the Blackhawks are the team this week, and much like all the other original 6 teams, maybe sans Boston, as we kind of hit on last podcast or 2 podcasts ago.
Last week.
But I don't see a big change.
Yeah.
A change at all.
Yeah.
This is just a look that's been with the team since the 60s.
Right.
That's a long time, and I don't think they're moving away from it.
Yeah, I kind of talked about how much I liked the Blackhawks look quite a bit last week. And so, I really don't see them changing either. It'll be interesting to see, these really tradition-laden teams, your Blackhawks, your Rangers, your Red Wings, your Canadians, how much they are changed by the Adidas takeover. And I don't know. I mean, the 3 stripes are already across the bottom of the jersey, so I mean they got that going for them. I guess they don't have to worry about
3 stripes.
You don't have to worry about the 3 stripes up the side. They already got it on the bottom. So I don't know. It kind of begs the question, though. We talked about changes to the original 6 last week, where we pondered which teams would change their jerseys, but the Blackhawks, it's kind of a unique issue because you're starting to get into that whole Native American nickname thing. So I'll pose the question to you: do you see them changing their nickname and or their logo anytime soon?
No.
Okay.
I don't.
I don't either.
There's a lot of things I could say on this, but I just basically, for as not good as the Blackhawks have seemingly handled other PR things in their most recent past, I wouldn't expect them to do much of anything with that.
Sure.
So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and I think the distinction is to be made, and forgive me for being a little bit political here. This is a non-political hockey podcast, but I think that there's a place for Native American nicknames in sports. Not all of them that are currently there, mind you. But like the Florida State Seminoles, obviously a very proud nickname, a very proud tribe that is very proud of their involvement with that team. The Fighting Sioux, we all saw how that went down, and we all laughed, much at that kind of deal. But I don't know. I feel like the Blackhawks are kind of a little bit different. They're not as bad as, let's say, the Cleveland Indians and that Chief Wahoo, which is pretty atrociously
that's
racist.
bad, yeah.
I don't see the Blackhawks in the same kind of vein as the Indians, the term Indians and the Chief Wahoo logo. I think it's kind of a different deal. I don't know. I haven't researched at all exactly how the specific tribe feels about it. But I gotta assume that we've never heard a whisper of the Blackhawks changing their names. So I gotta assume that there's full support from the tribe, and therefore it's going to carry on. So I kind of that's my kind of feeling on it. I was just wondering if you were kind of the same vibe, which that makes sense.
So while we were chatting about this, it's Hockey Day in America, and yesterday was Hockey Day in Canada, and
sure,
today's Hockey Day in America, and NBC has been. This is, I believe, their third hockey game on NBC or NBCSN today. And
sure,
they've got another one after.
Oh,
but so it's a nice thing to kind of promote the game. But I kind of lost my mind here momentarily. You might have noticed when they had Patrick Kane on the screen and they were showing his numbers for the season, which I get standard part of.
Is it Star Sunday?
No.
Oh.
They put a giant American flag next to those stats. Because why? It's Hockey Day in America.
Okay.
Patrick Kane, American. 58 points in 58 games.
Okay.
But anyway.
Does he know this when the Olympics are played, that he's American?
I don't know. I haven't noticed him. I didn't notice him in the last Olympics. So anyway.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. Any final thoughts before we...
on the Blackhawks jersey. I mean, to wrap up the jersey segment, I think, the Blackhawks jerseys I find them to be absolutely beautiful and simple and traditional. Like we talked about last week, the original 6. I hope they don't change them much. But whenever you have a new rollout like this, there's always going to be some silliness that goes on, as we saw with the Reebok Edge system. So I don't know. I shudder for hockey jersey future because I know that it's not going to go as well as we've laid it out this season. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Well, and I think we've kind of started to allude to that as you're going to have just only a limited number of teams past the original 6. They're going to have a similar look.
Yeah.
And a couple of them are already locked up because they've just changed jerseys in the last year or two.
Right.
So there's going to be some rampant change coming, and not favorably to this podcast.
Probably not.
But anyway, I can close the book on that. And I guess, I don't know, my final thought for the podcast.
Sure.
Since we hit some final thoughts.
Wrap it up, yeah.
Last Monday, Montreal made a huge splash by firing Michel Therrien and
I forgot about
hiring Claude Julien from the Boston Bruins, and he had been fired not a week ago.
Right.
And that is a huge upgrade for Montreal, and my first thought on that is, boy, are they going to be the team to wreck Washington this year, aren't they? But no, I guess, shame on Boston for letting your biggest rival get your coach in the middle of a season. Like, I can understand if you let that happen in the offseason, but I'm just so looking forward to that Montreal-Boston first-round playoff matchup now.
That's the part that baffles me. I mean, absolutely baffles me. Boston literally had to sign off on this.
Yep.
Because Julien is under contract with them, and the way that works in the NHL is that they're still paying him, so even though they fired him, they're still paying him, so they had to allow teams to talk to him. And they allowed the Canadians to talk to him. And, maybe there's something to be said for not having to play defense on coaching, or maybe they just didn't think it was that big of a deal. But I don't know. It just seems really, really weird that, and I forget who it was on NHL Network. God, I'm sorry. I wish I could remember who it was that broke this down. But he basically said, okay, so yeah, Boston's saving $3.8 million on letting Julien go to the Canadians. He's like, but each playoff home game is worth they say roughly $2 million to a team.
Right.
Did you just cost yourself a lot of money by trying to save yourself some money? So, and that's a very real question. And so, I don't know, it's just weird. And the fact that, I'm absolutely fascinated by the fact that this is the second time that Julien has replaced Therrien as the Montreal Canadiens head coach. That stuff just blows my mind.
It'll happen again. There'll be a number 3.
I hope it would just send me over the edge.
They only keep repeating because these guys speak French.
Yeah, there's only so many coaches they can hire because as soon as they get a coach in there that can't speak French, they fire him virtually instantly because they figure out he can't speak French.
I want to say it was the Biscuits podcast mentioned this week that it'll be Alain Vigneault that'll get sandwiched in between the next Therrien-Julien swap
because he's already been fired by the Canadiens as well.
Yeah.
Well, wasn't it Therrien that took over for Vigneault, right? Yeah, I believe it was. I believe they fired AV. Therrien took over. They fired him and hired Claude Julien. Hilarious. That's what happens, and it certainly worked out to the benefit of the Canadiens right now. But the ridiculousness of it's that's what you get for. I don't want to call it hockey racism or anything, but it's kind of hockey racism.
Well, that's my other thing is just. It's such an old boys club.
Yeah, the whole francophone thing is
so
weird.
So many coaches just get recycled, and I feel like it happens more often in the NHL than other sports. But
yeah, no, you're not wrong.
I don't know. I've kind of not followed baseball as closely as.
I feel like there's a lot more coaches in baseball, so a lot of them get cycled through.
Right. Yeah.
But it seems like every NHL hockey coach has had 3 or 4 head coaching jobs.
That, I guess my other final thought is it's going to seemingly be a joyous week here in the Farrell house. That Sunday liquor sales in Minnesota appears to be on the verge of passing.
Really?
So,
ooh,
looking forward to that.
It was nice knowing you, Giles.
Yeah. Party up in here. But no, so that's. Do you have any final thoughts?
I don't want to give away too much of my article this week. I kind of settled on what that's going to be. So, no, I don't know. I think it was a good week, and I guess with this bye week coming up, my last bit would be enjoy the time off. Because we've all certainly taken nights off of watching the Wild, and as much as we love it, and obviously not a lot of people can love watching the Wild a lot more. Patrick Kane,
American.
It is nice to have some time off, especially mid-season like this, and as ridiculous as it may be for the players, and as much as it's hurt teams coming out of the bye, enjoy it as a fan. Enjoy some time off. Maybe watch a different team play.
Right.
Maybe watch some college puck. That kind of thing. So that would be my final thought. The bye week sucks, right, but enjoy it.
It's going to be the really last, big break we have until the season is over.
Sure.
Until the Wild are eliminated from the playoffs.
Well, especially with the frantic pace that they play at games after this. I mean, it's going to be balls to the wall for the next 2 months after that. So
seemingly the only next extended break they'll have is the 3 days that separate them from the regular season and the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. So, for sure.
Once we come out of this bye, we're going to get dialed in. So I think I'm going to take the bye week and just kind of do some other non-hockey things and just kind of rest my head before the stretch comes down or comes in. So
watch some spring training.
I don't know about that. Anyway, so that'll wrap it up for us. Thank you to everyone for your continued listenership. We're seemingly still trending onward and upward here on this podcast as we have switched to Cold Omaha. So you can find Ben and I writing at coldomaha.com, and that's where you can also find the podcast under the podcast tab, and check out all the other podcasts on the Cold Omaha network. And I'm suddenly now remembering we need to record a promo for the Cold Omaha podcast.
Oh, God, network, good call.
Which we almost let go for the 3rd week in a row.
Damn it. Good catch.
But So yeah, and then you can follow us on the Twitters at Giles Farrell, at Ben Remington, and then again at GATG Wild Podcast. Give us a follow on the iTunes or Libsyn or Stitcher, whatever floats your boat.
Yeah.
And then be sure to give us a rating on those platforms as well. We love your feedback. Also, again, check out that handy dandy survey because we obviously want to make this product more listenable for you.
Mm-hmm.
Something else I'm going to start trying to dabble in, as I wanted to do this week but didn't, was have more kind of creative intros for the show.
Yeah.
We'll believe we're going to have a guest next week. I got to finalize a few things, but it should be, assuming we can get this person on, should be fun, and it is certainly going to be a topical one.
Yep, very cool.
So it'll be fun to have. So be sure to check that out. We will see you next week.
Later.
St. Paul, Minnesota. Minneapolis, Minnesota.
We are ducks, and ducks fly together.